Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, and welcome to another episode of the Sikh Renaissance. In today's episode, we discuss the oft-alleged controversial Sikh text, the Dasam Granth, that is often attributed to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the 10th and final human Guru of the Sikh faith. Please like this video and click the subscribe button below for constant updates on Sikh Renaissance content. The courts of the Sikh Gurus were far from simplistic gatherings of religious personalities. They were thriving centers of intellectual activity encompassing moral, political, religious, and social activity rooted in Guru Nanak's philosophical revelation that human reality was the hukam or divine writ of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. As such, the Sikh or the Khalsa, that is the most dedicated Sikh, was to learn and master all the intricacies of human nature to forward Guru Nanak's mission of divinely inspired mortal perfection on earth. While both the Sikh philosophy and praxis, from the 5Ks to Amrit Sanchar, originate from within the Guru Granth Sahib, we will cover more on this in later episodes. There are other ancillary texts that, although have no bearing on Sikh theology, nonetheless are intended as instructive manuals in the art of human craft or the control and nature of humans and their affairs. Some of these texts are ancient classics like the Arthashastra of Kautilya, or a mixture of Indic and Persian moralistic fables like the Hitopadesha. Others, though, are unique and consist of their own style and standing in their own right. One such text that has elicited much controversy over the past few decades is the Dasam Granth, often declared the 10th Guru's warrior scripture. In 1973, the premier Sikh authority, the Akal Takht, issued the proclamation that the majority of the Dasam Granth is a retelling of ancient tales with moralistic and strategic meanings for Sikhs and other readers. This was similarly ratified on 6th June 2008 when Sikh scholars at the Akal Takht duly informed the Panth that while the Dasam Granth could not be placed on par with the Guru Granth Sahib, it was still a heritage of the Sikhs and as such worthy of respect. The original 1973 proclamation echoed the works of Gyani Lal Singh of Hazur Sahib from the pre-Singh Sabha era that held that while the Dasam Granth was not a work of the 10th Guru per se in its entirety, it still reflected the mindset of the historic Sikhs and the intellectual tradition they drew inspiration from. In essence, though, what is the Dasam Granth controversy? The self-proclaimed missionary Sikhs have left no stone unturned in disparaging it as a Brahmanical work. They have done this in reaction to those who deify the text as the second Guru Granth Sahib. However, it is clear that the missionary Sikhs refrain from accurately researching the matter for their own revamping of Sikhi as a pseudo-liberal faith, because this is refuted by the text. This controversy was heightened in recent times by two individuals. Gurbaksh Singh Shergill, the late principal of Khalsa College, who was notorious for slavishly complying with the KPS Gill's directive in the 80s to identify any young Amritdhari Sikh youth and dob them into the authorities for extrajudicial murder. The second culprit is the still-alive Hardev Singh Shergill, the erstwhile editor of the Sikh Bulletin, now under the fist of Karminder Tillo and his revisionist agenda. Hardev Singh Shergill is the nephew of the late Gurbaksh Singh Shergill. It is intriguing that by 2005, their publication, the Sikh Bulletin, was exposing turncoats in the North American Sikh community, causing unnecessary factionalism among the youth in the name of Gurdwara and religious politics. But by the end of 2005, the Sikh Bulletin commenced denying the 5 Baniyas and demeaning the Kakars and Sikh tradition as a Brahmanical construct. Such controversy, keeping in mind that it exists as part of a greater pattern, is often designed by both the opposers of the Dasam Granth and its worshippers to dissuade inquiring Sikhs from discovering its true purpose. Unfortunately, this has created an opportunity for non-Sikhs, such as Hindus and Muslims, to hijack it to attempt to convert Sikhs to the degeneracy and falsity of their own faiths. We must remember that the Dasam Granth is an auxiliary, an ancillary text compiled in part after Guru Gobind Singh Ji on the Panth's directive to preserve the literary tradition of the 10th Guru's court. It contains fables, biographies, and poetic compositions in multiple Indic languages. In essence, it has no comprehensive poetic order, with multiple manuscripts differing, indicating its heterogeneous nature. This is further confirmed by the fact that while manuscripts lack the Zafarnama or the Epistle of Victory written as a literary weapon by the Guru against Aurangzeb, others have this. And then there are other manuscripts that have compositions that essentially differ from the Zafarnama, so there is no uniform agreement on the contents among multiple manuscripts. So essentially the text is not as confirmative as the Guru Granth Sahib and retains no theological bearing on Sikh philosophy or praxis. This is a very crucial point that needs to be remembered, as it forms the centerpiece of our rebuttal of Hindus and Muslims hijacking the text. There are, of course, several compositions that are undeniably the Guru's works. Jap Sahib, Tav Prasad Savaiye, Chaupai Sahib, Nishane Sikhi, Shabad Hazare, Hikayat, Zafarnama, Khalsa Mahima, Shabad Hazare, Rag Asa Padshahi Dasvi, and Rag Surat Padshahi Dasvi. This analysis is based on their prose and individual poetic nature that concurs with the larger pattern of the Guru's own works. There are others like Sansar Sukhmana that still require more analysis rather than emotional resorts to authority to while the lack of comprehensive research carried out by the so-called traditionalists or sampradas. There are still other compositions like Chandi Divar, the Ugradanti, and Bachittar-Natak, among several others, that while eliciting much controversy over their borderline Sanatan nature, nonetheless call for the eradication of the false non-Sikh faiths in one way or in another, reflecting the Sikh mindset of the times in regards to non-Sikh religions. Our issue as Sikhs is that we are allowing the foe to define the battleground rather than claiming what is rightfully ours. While it was accepted that the Dasam Granth was indeed a compilation of the surviving works of the Nandpur court, controversy was almost non-existent, even if the Sanatanis falsely claimed that the text deified their obsolete gods. Sikhs were able to point out how the same compositions they used as evidence backfired when they disparaged these false gods. Let us consider the case of Krishna and Krishan Avatar. Krishan Avatar details the exploits of Krishan, the Hindu deity, but the conclusion it draws is that due to Krishan's lustful nature and all too human imperfections, he is nothing but an insect or parasite in the greater scheme of things. Similar is the treatment of Ramchandar, who is exposed to be nothing but a weakling, unable to assess the validity of his own wife's innocence in regards to what transpired with her when she was Ravana's captive in Lanka. The contemporary Kesar Singh Shibbar in his Bansavali Nama notes that the Guru created his own Granth once and forbade the Sikhs from associating it with the Guru Granth Sahib or displaying any reverence to it, for it was his own play. As the late Sardar Daljit Singh of Institute of Sikh Studies noted once, that Shibbar's lack of detail on what the contents were of this Granth basically refutes both the worshippers of the text and its deniers. What we have so far, in essence, shows us this, that the Dasam Granth consists of 4 major works interspersed with several minor ones, and there is no agreement on the content or structure. So, first we have the Bachittar-Natak. The Bachittar-Natak misinterprets the 10th Guru's date of birth to be 1666, when more contemporary sources mention 1661 to 1662. Then we have the Shastrana Mala, or the Rosary of Weapons, Charitropakhyan, or the characteristics insight of man and woman, and the Gyan Prabodh, or an ode to divine wisdom. The Dasam Granth then is not a theological text of the Sikhs and has no direct theological bearing on the faith. So those who use it to attack Sikhs on some modernist moral grounds are only fooling themselves as to the nature of Sikh theology. We now come to the issue of Muslims misusing the text to attack Sikhs. In particular, the Sikhs who seek solidarity with them have been beset by a contradiction that has broken their cowardly hearts. There is a katha of Sant Jarnail Singh Ji Khalsa Bhindranwale on the Bachittar-Natak, easily accessible online. In the beginning of the Natak, the various false dogmas of the false faiths have been described in great detail by the author.
ਹੋਇਆ ਮੁਹੰਮਦ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੈਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਰਬ ਦੇਸ਼ ਕੋ ਕੀਨੋ ਰਾਜ ਅਰਬ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਰੇਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਘਰੇ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ 45 ਤੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨੌਕਰ ਸੀ ਗੋਲਾ ਸੀ ਇੱਕ ਰਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸੀ ਵਿਧਵਾ ਦੇ ਨੌਕਰ ਲੱਗਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਬੜੀ ਭਾਰੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਿਆ ਕਰਦਾ 45 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਾਮਾ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਲੱਗਾ ਉਦੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 45 ਸਾਲ ਤੱਕ ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਿਆਨਪਦਾਰੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਸਨੇ ਦਾ ਕੰਮਕਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਪ੍ਰਸੰਨ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵਿਆਹ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਸੋ ਆਪਣਾ ਮਾਲਕ ਬਣਾ ਬੈਠੀ ਸੀ ਉਦੋਂ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਇਹਦੀਆਂ 12 ਸ਼ਾਦੀਆਂ ਹੋਰ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨਿਕਾਹ ਹੋਏ ਹੈ ਪਰਮਾਨੰਦ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਇਆ ਚੰਗਾ ਕਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਰੰਗੀਲ ਰਸੂਲ ਖਾਨ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਉਹ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਰੰਗੀਲਾ ਰਸੂਲ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਛਾਪ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਹੰਮਦ ਜੀ ਦੇ 12 ਵਿਆਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਿਕਾਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਤਲ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਮਾਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਪਰਮਾਨੰਦ ਉਹਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਸੀ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀ ਨੇ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਉਚਾਰਿਆ ਉਹ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਬਣਾਈ ਸੀ ਸੋ 45 ਸਾਲ ਤੱਕ ਨੌਕਰ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਨੌਕਰਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰਵਾ ਕੇ ਤੇ 45 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਕਹਿਣਗੇ ਇਹ ਪੈਗਾਮ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਤੂੰ ਆਖੇ ਖੁਦਾ ਦਾ ਰੂਪ ਹੈ ਤੋ ਐਸਾ ਪੂਜਨੀਕ ਬਣਿਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਿਨ ਪੀ ਇੱਕ ਪੰਥੀ ਉੱਪਰ ਆ ਜਾ ਇੱਕ ਪੰਥ ਰਾਸਤਾ ਬਣਾਤਾ ਕਿਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਇਹਨੇ ਖੁਸਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਪੈਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਿਨਾ ਕੀਨੇ ਸਭ ਰਾਜਾ ਤੇ ਬਿਨਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਰਾਜੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਤੇ ਸੁਨਤ ਕਰਵਾਏ ਸੀ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸੁਨਤ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਬਰਾਹੀਮ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਲੀ ਹੈ
Muhammad, the Islamic prophet, is exposed for a con artist turned king who plagiarized concepts from pagans and Jews to create a Panth of Khosre or transgenders. The Sant explicitly says this, articulating that Muhammad was blind to the reality that Vaheguru gave what he did to men, and by mutilating the penises of his men to copy Abraham, in order to lend his false cult some credence, he was committing a transgression against nature itself. Indeed, even the evolutionary sciences emphasize the stupidity of this Islamic doctrine, among other factors. It is only natural then for Muslims to misconstrue the Dasam Granth and other sections like the Charitropakhyan to argue it is as equally degenerate as their Quran and Hadiths. However, they forgo the purpose of the Pakhyan, that is to forewarn against their immorality and degeneracy of non-Sikhs in general. Another aspect to keep in mind is that none of these Charitars in the Charitropakhyan, which is a favorite target of detractors, feature any Sikhs. More or less, they mention royal personalities of the time and other well-known individuals to deliver home their point in the same style as the earlier Persian Bhare Danish. Such connections were elaborated upon by the legendary Gyani Bishan Singh of the Gyanis, who highlighted the doxographical nature of the majority of Dasam Granth compositions. The Charitropakhyan, given that it is the centerpiece of these attacks, if read from an impartial perspective, condemns many of the transgressions happening in the world today. It lays bare the realities of Sanatan and Islam. The nations of both faiths are high achievers when it comes to bestiality, rape, perversity, pedophilia, homosexuality, and every other sexual degeneracy under the sun. All these elements are condemned in the Charitropakhyan. So much for the Sikh acceptance of homosexuality, as the Dasam Granth does condemn it, as well as the Guru Granth Sahib. However, members of both the Sanatan and Islamic belief systems lack the intellectual capacity to comprehend the real thrust of the Charitropakhyan. And how could they actually retain that capacity? The Muslims are too busy in celebrating Muhammad, who allegedly slept with all 11 of his wives in one night, and the Sanatanis in figuring out which of their multiple deities to worship. The Islamic Dawa case isn't helped by the addition of Pakistani Punjabi speakers targeting Punjabi-speaking Sikhs either, because a majority of these Pakistani Punjabi Islamic missionaries are more or less byproducts of incestuous inbreeding, which is traditional among their school of Islam. So let us now look at some common assertions made by both Muslims and Sanatanis against the Dasam Granth. So number 1, Sikhs claim to be distinct from Hindus, but all the verses related to the worship of the goddess Durga or Shakti in the form of Chandi run contrary to this assertion of a distinct Sikh identity, along with Sikhis' claim to monotheism. For the Sanatanis, the case is one of proving Sikhs as Hindus, while for the Muslims, it is to up their fallacious claim that their pagan-inspired rock-worshipping faith in the form of Makkah is the only true fount of monotheism. All the verses related to the worship of Durga are not consequential to the integrity of Sikh theology and monotheism. The compositions relating to Durga are mere translations and renditions of the tale found within the Puranas. For a medieval Braj poet, such poetic adaptations and translations are common practice, regardless of one's religious background. For the poetic adaptations/renditions of popular tales are used to display the literary expertise and skill of the poets writing them. In no way do they inform the poet's theological outlook. For example, multiple Muslim poets translated Hindu epics. While of course their people paid for their blood back then and are still paying for their removal from history even today, in no way does this make them Hindus, as they never professed that belief system. There are multiple examples of this literary tradition existing throughout India, not defined by faith or any border. However, the irony is lost on those who would convert Sikhs from the truth of Gurmat to their false faiths. Moving on, another argument is how the Dasam Granth encourages intoxicants and alcohol. In reality, irrespective of what modern neo-Nihangs claim, not a single verse from the Dasam Granth contains any directive or injunction to consume alcohol. Rather, the damages of the use of intoxicants and alcohol are duly displayed within its tales, such as in the following verse. Ek madi duja torni, tija at tantam, paap kare bin kayono, bache bache, bachave ram. Intoxicants, youth, and wealth, along with financial security. One who has all three, how can that person not be tempted by sin? If he is to save himself, he is to follow the discipline of the all-pervasive Maker, and only then can he assure that he can save himself from temptations that lead down dark paths. This argument, though, is also a favorite of the upgrade school of thought. However, they conveniently omit such verses which run contrary to their agenda. Moving on, let us answer another allegation made by those who weaponize the Dasam Granth against Sikhs. This allegation holds that it must be noted that most of the controversies related to sexual immorality emerge from the Charitropakhyan, a section of the Dasam Granth. In reality, Shri Charitropakhyan consists of hundreds of tales which are meant to convey and imbue lessons of morality through various stories. These stories themselves, however, are highly controversial, and not only in relation to how they portray women as being by their very nature deceitful. So, the first allegation, so this one allegation consists of two allegations. So, the first allegation is, of course, that the Charitropakhyan is very controversial due to its sexual nature. And the second allegation that has been further refined by the missionary Sikhs is that Sri Charitropakhyan consists of hundreds of tales which are meant to convey and imbue lessons of morality through various stories. These stories themselves, however, are highly controversial, and not only in relation to how they portray women as being by their very nature deceitful. Now, the second aspect originates from the missionaries, who argue that in reality, this is exactly the nature of the Sri Charitropakhyan, that it consists of tales, and the argument formed here also branches off the original argument that these are just tales. Why would the Guru write tales? Or why would the Sikhs of the Guru write any tales in the Guru's courts? However, considering that we did say that Guru Nanak's divinity is for this world and human nature, let us keep this in mind when considering that the Sri Charitropakhyan is not the first of its kind. Charitars pertaining to women and men formed a genre of literature that portrayed and adapted popular pre-existing folk tales depicting immorality, degeneracy, deceit, and depravity. Before the Guru, before Guru Gobind Singh Ji, before the Sikh Gurus even, many other poets from India had written their own compilations of such charitars. The Gurus merely partook in the literary tradition and practices of their time. The stories in the Sri Charitropakhyan are cautionary tales that are self-explanatory and common sense. Only in ignorance of medieval Indic literature would make one assert otherwise. Now, of course, due to the inability of the Sikhs to furnish timely and strong academic responses, authors such as Robin Reinhardt and MacLeod have made unsubstantiated allegations against the Guru himself, the 10th Guru that is, using the Charitropakhyan. One such tale that is almost weaponized against Sikhs all the time is the tale of a certain Anupkor trying to deceive a king of a citadel named Anandapur. This has led many pseudo-academics and the like to assert that this Charitar actually mentions Guru Gobind Singh Ji. But this is not confirmed by the Charitar itself, so the main piece of evidence does not agree with them. This Charitar actually relates the tale of a rich widow who tries bedeviling a king who rejects her, saying that his maker has made him a king, and he cannot indulge in pleasures of the flesh. He is already married and will not betray his wife either. Morality and power are interlinked, and he will not violate any of them. He then clarifies he is a Sikh of a greater Guru, and he has his own Sikhs, disciples, looking up to him. He will not betray their trust by indulging with a woman not his own. What is interesting here is that Muslims in particular cherry-pick Anupkor's admonishments to the king and try presenting them as injunctions for the Sikhs to be promiscuous. Anupkor tells the king that various courts have been promiscuous, so what are such dalliances between mere mortals? It is the height of absurdity to think that such a dialogue is an injunction, especially since it originates with the antagonist of the Charitar. We now turn to another Charitar, Charitar 68, the tale of the mayor's vagina. Muslims and Sanatanis assert that this tale is injunctive for Sikhs and condones bestiality. This they do to hide their own shenanigans with beasts. But is this actually true? Charitar 68 recounts the tale of a rich man's son who befriends a barber's son who exactly resembles him. The barber's son takes over the rich man's son's identity and enslaves him. Unable to escape the confines placed upon him, the rich man's son is finally blessed by Shiva, who gives him the power to freeze time. Armed thus, the rich man's son indulges in a series of pranks. He freezes time just as people are doing the most depraved of acts and catches them in the process. The barber's son enslaving him is frozen as he's in the toilet. The rich man's son brings along a doctor to heal his affliction. This doctor is equally responsible for his fate. The doctor is awestruck at the inability of people to unfreeze time. And so the rich man's son advises him that he has heard that by licking a mare's vagina, this affliction of frozen time can be cured. The doctor agrees, but because of his own depraved nature, wants to try this cure. When he starts the licking process, the rich man's son also freezes him. The moral of this Charitar is to retain enough foresight to avoid untenable situations and always use common sense before approaching matters, something the rich man's son was initially lacking. When he decided to make over his own identity to the barber's son. It also illustrates the predominance of educated fools like the doctor who have no confidence in their own ability and points out that education alone is not a guarantee of a man's virtue. This Charitar is derived from what was once a popular North Indian folk tale, forewarning against trifling with fate and also cautioning against trusting the educated just on the basis that they are educated. Now we come to Charitar 90, and this one has been written keeping the foolishness of fathers in mind when it comes to their daughters. A father knows the lustful gazes of men and how they attempt to ensnare young women because he was such a young man himself once. As such, he is his daughter's greatest defense against sexual immorality and the dark path it leads to, considering that young women are just as likely to plunge headfirst into this darkness without considering the consequences. Charitar 90 is the tale of Princess Deepkala. There used to live a princess named Deepkala. She was very affluent and had many maids to attend her. She sent one of her maids and called over a goldsmith she had seen in the markets. She ravished with him and felt blissful. Every night and day she would invite him to her house and with him be enjoyed by making love. One day when he was at her house, her father came to her quarters unannounced. Her father was the king. She could think of no excuse other than putting eyelashes in the goldsmith's eyes and shaving off his hair and beard and dressing him as a woman. Just as the king enters her bedroom, this man disguised as a woman is leaving. Unduly foolish and blinded by his love for his daughter, the king could not discern the secret, and in this way the goldsmith routinely visited and pillaged his daughter's virtue every day. The lesson here translates to hijabi Muslim girls who present a religious face to their families but are known for doing what is haram under the sheets with every walking man outside of their circles. While among traditional Sanataanism there is no agreement on what consists promiscuity, in Islam we see a similar strain of thought permeating the works of even Hanbal and Ghazali. In the current period, Robert Greene has written an exceptional work on seduction and forewarned that seduction is not sexual alone. It also exists in other forms. Charitar 90 shows us that while Deepkala sexually seduces the goldsmith, she emotionally seduces her father, who she has blinded with her plays at fealty and loyalty, disallowing him from considering her conduct for what it truly is. Thus, the father is lost in a mire of haze, unable to see the fault of his own child and how it will severely impact his judgment and throne in the future. The moral lesson here is to always consider the vices of one's own children as well. This is not a sign of failure, but a sign of taking responsibility for the life we bring into this world. If by implication the Dasam Granth indeed declares Muhammad a hermaphrodite and considers the Sanatani deities lurid and degenerate, then why should we as Sikhs become apologetic over this? Our Guru is providing us with moral cautions to remember that those who follow such prophets and such gods are no better themselves. You become what you worship, and if you worship degeneracy, you become degenerate yourself. The missionary Sikhs and the upgrades by and large have missed the boat on the Dasam Granth issue. It has no theological propositions for Sikhi, but it still retains significant strategic and social lessons. Until next time, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.